like a Mr. Beast challenge gone wrong. You build a fort out of cardboard boxes in aisle 4. You fight other shoppers for control of the electronics department. You hoard the great value potato chips and declare yourself the king of the grocery section. That's exactly how ridiculous we might look if we were to spend our entire lives chasing corporate promotions, worldly status, and digital clout.
Okay, here we are on episode 10 of the Reason and Revelation podcast featuring my brother, Ammon House, and myself, Chris House. We've all heard about red pilling at this point. Basically, it's just waking up to some harsh realities like the media and government lie a lot.
Fake news.
So much fake news. And girls won't be attracted to you just because you're nice. Quite true. But what if we are actually in the Matrix right now? And I'm not joking. Let's say you're in the Matrix right now, going through the motions, even trying to get ahead, and also enjoying some of what the Matrix has to offer. But what if you were actually meant to do something much bigger and more meaningful, and you just haven't found what it is yet? We believe God sent you to earth for a reason. And part of that is he had important things he needed you to do while you're here. And we're going to discuss how you can find out what he meant for you to do and why figuring that out is so important for your happiness, where you'll end up in eternity, and for life to even make sense. So we have a unique twist on red pilling for you. Even if you're not sure what that is, we'll give you just a quick. Yeah, where have you been? No, it's chill. We'll give you a fast rundown. In the movie The Matrix, you got Neo. He's living what seems like a normal life. He goes to work or school. You could put yourself in his shoes. Comes home, stares at a screen. Something feels off, but he can't name it. And then he's offered a choice: a blue pill or a red pill. Blue pill, you stay asleep. Everything goes back to normal. Red pill, you wake up and see the world for what it actually is. And what he discovers is that everything he thought was real, the city, his job, the feeling of the sun even on his face, like all of these sensations, none of it was real. It was all a simulation, a constructed world designed to keep him distracted, compliant, and blind to what was actually going on. So the term red pill today usually means like you wake up to harsh truths about reality. And we agree with this, though the red pill movement isn't always great.
So The Matrix, the movie with Keanu Reeves and everyone, Morpheus and whatnot, it was actually based upon kind of a foundational philosophy for Western civilization, which is Plato in the book The Republic has his teacher Socrates tell the allegory of the cave. And this is a famous allegory that's worth looking into about what if your whole life you were forced to stare at a wall and there was a fire behind you and someone put on a puppet show in this fire and all you knew was what these shadows were. But he goes through what would happen if one of those prisoners broke out of the cave, that he would be blinded by the sun, the real sun outside, feeling all the real things. And when he goes back to the cave to try and help his cohorts and tell them they're living a fake life, they all would laugh at him and tell him the bright light had messed up his vision because the cave is dark. He can't see the cave very well anymore because the real light hurt his eyes. And the people in the cave would actually probably fight him when he's trying to get them out of the cave that they're stuck in. And it's this foundational idea that I think people have struggled with forever, if what we're living through is real. And I think even what Christopher said right there, that, you know, fake news and nice guys finish last and all these things that people say is real red pilling, getting out of the Matrix. I really think it's entirely superficial, that it tells you to wake up to the simulation just so you can learn how to optimize your life inside of the cave, how to make more money, get more status, be more popular, get better toys. And it's the illusion of rebellion that's sold to us by the system itself. I think it's their way of like, okay, you want to have some independent thought? Here, we'll give you this, but you're still stuck in our little play thing.
That's such a good point, and I'm glad there's a real world analogy to tie into this. It's not that great to just optimize for life in the cave. Sure, you can make your life in the cave a little bit better, but you got to get out of the cave. And that's actually what this episode is supposed to be about, is what if there is a more spiritual component to red pilling that even the red pillars are still missing? And what if the red pill was realizing that we're actually in a matrix right now? We actually are in the cave. But the first step isn't necessarily breaking out of the matrix and shutting the matrix down. It's realizing that the world we live in isn't our home. It's not where we're from, and it's not where we'll spend eternity. We were sent to Earth for a very specific purpose that we knew once, but we have forgotten. To help me illustrate, let's picture a reverse situation of Neo in the Matrix. Imagine you didn't live in the Matrix, but you're aware it's a place where everyone has to go at some point. And so your leader, who's Morpheus in the movie, sends you in, and you agree because the mission he gave you was very important. And even though you knew your mission would be very difficult and long, and you knew your memory would be erased so that the Matrix would now be the only world you know, but Morpheus, your leader, would give you some hints and guidance along the path to help you discover and ultimately achieve what you came to do. Now, okay, so now the day of your mission has come, and you're sent into the Matrix, and you forget that you ever had a mission. And you discover that in the world that we live in, it's more challenging than you thought. It's actually quite distracting. And many people, like Ammon was talking about in the cave, many people try to make you believe that the reason you're here is not what you were told by Morpheus. Now, what happens if we allow ourselves to be deceived by those people and get distracted by everything that the world offers, and we forget our mission entirely? Well, one day you're going to wake up and realize very clearly what your mission was, and realize that you totally failed the mission and you let yourself, others, and your leader down. So how does this relate to real life? We actually are in a matrix. There is a whole spiritual world that we cannot see. There's a war waging for the souls of men. God and his angels literally exist, and they are around us, trying to refine us to become more like them so our souls can be saved in a glorious and joyous heaven. And the devil is trying to distract and corrupt us so we become miserable like him for eternity. We have God creating this world and our spirits, and he sent us here to receive a physical body, to grow, and to see if we would follow and obey him even if we can't see him. To find out if we would follow Jesus Christ even when it's difficult. Or would we be distracted by the entertainment and money and pleasure and never even realize we're in the matrix? Okay, so why does this all matter? Well, if God sent you here to do important things, and you agreed to do those things, and then you forget that mission in life, what will we do when we die? Return to God's presence and remember clearly what we agreed to, and also realize we did none of it. Instead, we spent our time watching screens, seeking pleasure, fame, and money, only to die and have everything we worked for evaporate because it's meaningless in eternity. You spent your whole life building a mansion on earth only to die and see your heavenly bank account has little in it. We'll realize God had specific things he needed us to do in life, people that needed us, and those people never got the help, or somebody else had to do it. How embarrassing and horrifying will that moment be, and how desperately will we wish we could go back and take the red pill sooner and use our time to build our heavenly mansion with daily righteous actions. All of this is important because if God is real and he really made you, your spirit, and he really determines where you live in eternity, then God is the designer of this world and he has a reason for sending you here. And it's important you figure out what that reason is. What if we didn't choose to be here and we were sent in like Neo for an important mission? And Ammon had a cool analogy and a better way to explain this than I did.
You came up with it first, but I just spiced it up a little bit. But I imagine if you think about it like this, that your father sends you on a temporary errand to Walmart. You know, you gotta get the eggs or you forgot toilet paper. I don't know. You didn't particularly want to go, but you agreed because you learned how to drive recently and your family needed it, so you go. But the moment you walk through the sliding glass doors, your memory was wiped. You look around, you see the fluorescent lights, endless rows of cheap consumer goods, and you mistakenly conclude after enough time that Walmart is your permanent home and where you're from and where you're supposed to live. So you spend the next 80 years trying to optimize your life in the store. Like a Mr. Beast challenge gone wrong. You build a fort out of cardboard boxes in aisle 4. You fight other shoppers for control of the electronics department. You hoard the great value potato chips and declare yourself the king of the grocery section. And I don't know, when I thought about it like that, and you look at your life from an eternal perspective, that's exactly how ridiculous we might look if we were to spend our entire lives chasing corporate promotions, worldly status, and digital clout. You are trying to build a kingdom in Wally World. It was never meant to be where we lived. It was never supposed to be our home. It was just a temporary, inferior testing ground where we were sent in to accomplish a task and leave.
So, do you want to keep living like the Matrix is all there is, focusing on and optimizing for things that will all be gone in 70 years? Or do you want to wake up and realize that God created this world? He is the master, just like in the Hunger Games, he's the maker of the games. This is his world, and he sent you here to do something. And you'll find the greatest purpose and joy by living in alignment with what he wanted you to do, rather than forgetting why you came here and then trying to like make the best of a world that in the scriptures is described as us being wanderers in a strange land. And that is the case because this isn't our home. We weren't supposed to optimize for living here. We're supposed to do and obey God and grow to become more like him before we return to our glorious home. The real red pill is a spiritual awakening. It's the moment you look at this world and realize it wasn't supposed to be your home. You were sent here on a mission by God to do important things. You need to figure out what those things are instead of chasing things that were always designed to distract you.
I love that so much. And that's why you find so many people who are depressed today, because they're being sold, I think for the first time in millennia, that the reason they were here is to make money, to indulge yourself as much as you can. And that's it. You're not even supposed to have families anymore. You're not supposed to fight for your country, to have pride in that. You're just supposed to literally indulge yourself to death.
And even the people that are more productive than that, I read the 5 a.m. Club self-help book recently, and there's a lot of good principles in there, but it relies on manly philosophies too much. You know, the book is basically prescribing how to live happily. And, you know, it's somebody who has a ton of life experience, and so the things they outline are actually quite good. But if that's all there is, it's missing something. And the author acknowledges it because even in the pages, they're like, you know, you can live this really happy, productive, accomplished life. But then like some days still are just going to really suck. Life is going to be depressing really still for some reason. And I'm not saying that life isn't going to be hard and sad, sorrowful, but if you have the correct understanding of why we're here, you can have more peace and ensure that you're on the correct path. And the scriptures promise when you're faithful, that every sorrow that you have will be swallowed up in the joy of Christ. And if we're right, God created this world and he sent us here for a reason, then optimizing for this world will always leave something out. No matter how hard you try to make the cave work and make Walmart your home, it's just always going to feel odd and a little weird because it lacks so much of the wonder and splendor of the heavenly vistas that we're from.
No, that's really profound. And trying to put it's like having conspiracy theory and trying to force an answer to go through. And maybe you can try and make it seem like it works, but if it's not the truth, then there will be holes in it. And you can feel that on an intrinsic level. One of the best books I've ever read was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And there's this quote in there that I love where he says that life doesn't owe us happiness, but it asks us questions. The answer doesn't come through the words or beliefs, but it comes through the correct action and the correct conduct and the correct perspective.
That's great.
He went through the Nazi camps, and he was still able to find meaning there, find happiness. And he has a quote where he says that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. I love that. You have people now, I think like suicide is some of the highest it's ever been in the history of mankind because people do not know or remember who they are or why they are here. And it breaks my heart to hear about that because they are loved. You are important. There is a reason that you're here right now, and you can take charge of that. Sure, this life isn't going to be all rainbows and sunshine, but that's not the reason you were sent here. Jesus Christ could have sent you, or I mean, you could have been sent by God to a fairy Disneyland where you never suffered, but then you never would have become the person he knows you can be. You wouldn't have been happy there. It would have been nice for a little time, and you would have fallen out of love with it. And you'd question why you were here. What's their purpose? And I think that's why Jesus Christ said that we are meant to be in the world, but not of it. That we were supposed to be distinctly different. That we are meant to be here so that he could identify the men and the women who, under maximum pressure and maximum temptation, that they would do the things that he commanded them to see if they could be the people they wanted to be. There's this quote from C.S. Lewis that I wanted to close out on. We'll have a couple more comments, but it's from the Screw Tape Letters. And I think it's a really beautiful difference between what the Matrix tries to sell you and what ends up happening to you because of it, and what God, your Father, has in mind for you. And for anyone who doesn't understand the premise of the Screw Tape Letters from C.S. Lewis, it's basically these demons trolling around talking to each other about how to best lead people quietly away into eternal damnation. How can we trick them to get away from their Father in heaven that loves them? And this is what the affectionate Uncle Screwtape says to his nephew, the demon Wormwood. He says, to decide what the best use of it is, you must ask what use the enemy wants to make of it, the enemy being God, and then do the opposite. Now, it may surprise you to learn that in his efforts to get permanent possession of a soul, he relies on the troughs even more than on the peaks. God relies on our lowest moments more than our highest. Some of God's special favorites have gone through longer and deeper troughs than anyone else. The reason is this. To us, the demons, a human is primarily good. Our aim is the absorption of its will into ours, the increase of our own area of selfhood at its expense. But the obedience which the enemy demands of men is quite a different thing. One must face the fact that all the talk about his love for men and his service being perfect freedom is not, as one would gladly believe, mere propaganda, but an appalling truth. He really does want to fill the universe with a lot of loathsome little replicas of himself. Creatures whose life on its miniature scale will be qualitatively like his own, not because he has absorbed them, but because their wills freely conform to his. We want cattle who can finally become food. He wants servants who can finally become sons. We want to suck in. He wants to give out. We are empty and would be filled. He is full and flows over. Our war aim is a world in which our Father below has drawn all other beings unto himself. The enemy wants a world full of beings united to him, but still distinct. And I've never heard it more poetically stated there what the Matrix really is trying to get out of you. It needs you to be the brick in the wall. There's a reason in school you're put into little rows. Why at work you're stuck into a little cubicle, because you do your little part to keep the system going, to feed into what the higher ups want. But God wants you to break out of that, realize who you are, that you really are a divine son and daughter of his with infinite potential. And as you become more like him, you'll still be distinct, but you will be filled with his power, versus the devil, versus the Matrix that would suck you for everything that you are and everything that you can give out. And that's why me and Chris would ask you today to take the pill, fight the system, to break out of it.
And I'll just add, there's a great scripture. If you're looking for purpose in life, why are we here? There's something that Christ actually says in the world before this one, before we were sent here, when the plan of salvation was presented on why the souls of men would come down to earth. Christ said, "And we will prove them herewith, to see if they will do all things whatsoever the Lord their God shall command them." And so when you realize that's the purpose of life, to come down to earth, to get a physical body, and to grow and develop, like Ammon said, and to see if you would be obedient to God, even when he's not always around. You can't always see him. There's reasons to believe he's there, and there's reasons to doubt. Would you still choose good? Would you still be obedient and faithful to Jesus when he died for you? Or would you try to get away with what you can get away with? And that is kind of the brilliant matrix that God has designed. Believe it or not, men are not the most intelligent beings in the universe. You have inanimate objects, and then you have plants, and then you have animals, and then you have humans, and then you have God. And God's intelligence cannot be matched by ours. And so he is able to design a matrix, actually, that we wouldn't realize is a matrix unless we turn to him and learn from him through revelation. But that doesn't mean it's not real. There is sun outside of the cave. There is much greater joy and sensation and peace and purpose that you can find if you don't just go through the rat race of building a fort in Walmart and trying to make your life in Walmart as good as possible. You can leave Walmart and do what you were really meant to do, and life will be so much better. And so we just really encourage you to seek God. Learn if God is real and find what you are supposed to be doing, the good things you're supposed to be doing in life, the people you're supposed to be serving, the family you're supposed to start, the truths and gospel that you should preach. And as you do that, peace and purpose will come into your life, and nothing else can make you happier. Ammon, I know, could say the same thing. I can testify that of all the good things in my life, I mean, we live in the most prosperous era in world history. We live in the USA, which is the freest and greatest country of all time. And I have a wonderful family. I have a wonderful wife and home. And there is nothing that brings me greater peace than serving God and being aligned with the purpose and reason why I was sent here. You are like Neo. You are a key player, and you just don't know it yet. You haven't sought all of your purpose, and you haven't developed all of your potential. You could grow to be the chosen one in a lot of ways, the one chosen by God, in fact, to do great things, if you will rise up from being distracted and put God first.
I love that. I will chime in, actually. I can testify of that as well, that of all the great things that you could ever experience in this life, of slushy from 7-Eleven, I have a wonderful wife, and you can have all these great things, watch the greatest movies, and nothing compares to the fulfillment that I feel from living the gospel of Jesus Christ and knowing that I'm here for a reason, knowing the reason I'm here. I like the imagery behind taking off the shackles, opening your eyes, waking up. And Christopher had this quote in here, so I want to read it because I think it's great, that the battle for your soul is real. And the men who figure that out early are the ones who actually win. And it's so true. The people who win are the ones who figure out what really matters in this life the soonest. And hopefully you can take the time and figure that out today. Figure out or ask the hard questions. Why am I here? Where am I going? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing instead of building a better mousetrap every day and living the rat race?
Thank you. And then as a just a last thought based on what you're saying, to win the game, you have to realize what the game is, which game is being played. You know, if you're on a basketball court, but you're on the sideline like folding paper cranes, that's not the right game. And even if you become really good at playing basketball, or you become the richest person out there or the most famous person out there, what if the game has nothing to do with that and you spent all of your time on that thing? You know, you got to make sure you're playing the right game before you can win it. So anyway, that's all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed it.